Hey, this is Nica Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva,
Yo, this is Terrance Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
and welcome to the Snobble West Show, the show for Apple snobs where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of the Snobble West Show. We want to take a moment to thank you for your continued support of our show. If you want to become a Patreon supporter that gives you access to our live show and to get some exclusive content, you can head on over to patreon.com/SnobbleWestcast. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into the show this week. We're going to kick it off with the lowdown where we talk all things Apple. First up, Apple Card. We've talked about Apple Card a little bit in the last couple of weeks. We talked about how Goldman Sachs may not be too happy with the partnership, maybe trying to dump it off to someone else, someone like Amex or some other company. But I say all that to say is Goldman Sachs may not be satisfied with the partnership of Apple Card, but customers are not. For the third straight year in a row, the Apple Card has the highest consumer satisfaction rating of all co-branded credit cards that have no annual fee. And this is according to the JD Power survey, folks. So again, we mentioned this: the Apple Card the Apple Goldman Sachs partnership came into play in 2019. And it's smooth, almost 20 points higher than its next competition, which was the Hilton Honors American Express, then followed by Amazon Prime Rewards Visa Signature. So while some of the company who is, I guess, backing on the Apple Card is not seemingly very happy, it seems like customers are. Terrence and I both have Apple Cards. Have you noticed, or do you have any complaints with the benefits and the perks for your Apple Card?
No complaints. I think the customer satisfaction stuff comes from, in my opinion, how easy it is to use and how easy it is to manage. No websites, no emails, no paper mail coming to your house. Everything is done via the wallet app on your phone, or via Mac or via Apple Watch or iPad. So if you have an iPhone, if you have an iPad, if you have a Mac, you can manage your Apple Card information, and it's just simple. I mean, it's simple. People understand how credit cards work. With Apple, again, like you mentioned, there's no annual fees. There's no um, rewards that you have to track. There's nothing you have to keep, monitor of to make sure you're getting your money's worth. You sign up, you get approved or not. You can instantly use the card because it's added to your phone and you can use it at anywhere that contactless payments are accepted. And you just go on about your business and you check your phone anytime you want to see the balance, you know, um, and the
Make a
rewards.
payment? Yeah,
And the rewards is just you get cat and you see
cash
it
back.
daily versus some of these other credit cards. The rewards, like I mentioned, you gotta one to get the rewards, you gotta go and click on and accept all the offers in order to get your quote unquote discounts or get your rewards. Or if you are doing a cash back, it's kind of hard to find it. Sometimes it shows up as a statement credit, it's hidden with amongst the statement bill, and all those things, right? With the Apple Card, every day you'll get a little alert or you'll get a notification that you've received cash back based off of the purchases you made that day or whatever the case may be. When it's time to pay, it's easy as just paying with another card that you've connected to your Apple wallet, and bing, bang, boom, you're done. So I think the simplicity and the fact that you can manage it all on your phone is, in my opinion, why the Apple Card has got this recent rating.
Yeah, and so much so that again, the Apple Card is in the US solely. The UK, they are like, so hey, when are we going to get
Because the
Apple
UK
Card
be
over here?
tripping on Apple. They be tripping on them. So Apple's like, "All right, bet. Y'all ain't
We'll
getting
fix
nothing."
you. You wanna make us change the ports on our phones. You want all
Mhm.
these other things. You wanna get
Mhm.
access to our,
Right.
uh,
Security,
encryption.
you want us to
Yeah.
let you know
Mm-mm.
you want us to let you know when we release new security features so you can approve them or not? Alright, bet. Bet.
You don't get nothing no more. You got this phone, and that's what all we're giving to you. But yeah,
Mhm.
so, like I said, it goes to show that consumers are definitely happy with the partnership, but, I think at this point, one of the things is, would you have a happy customer base like that? And a lot of times people, who would go for the Apple Card, they're used to making, high high value purchases, specifically as it relates to any Apple products, because Apple products are not inexpensive, as we alluded to last week. Next up, so the next couple of things are potentials for the future. When I was doing, research for this week's show, a lot of the commentary was about all the different betas. I think the release candidate for Mac Ventura has been released. There are tons of rumors because again, we're a couple weeks away from a potential Apple announcement for some new hardware. So it's tons and tons of rumors about what's going to be in it, what's going to be included, what's not, all those types of things. So when I saw these next two things, I was like, this is a different take. It's not necessarily a rumor, but it is speculative in some aspect. So if you use a newer model iPhone um, or iPad, you have Face ID, which is the biometric authentication method. And if you have, a newer MacBook, you have either the touch bar or you have the on the M1, M2s, I think that's the M2 that we have. It has a little button for the touch ID. Well, none of the Macs have Face ID. They only have Touch ID. And Mac has, according to Patently Apple, I'm reading the story on 9 to 5 Mac, they have been awarded, when I say they, I mean Apple, a second patent for a way to implement Face ID on MacBooks. Now, this article says, they got the patent all hunky dory, but don't be expecting this implementation anytime soon. In addition to, um, you know, uh, the patent, I think it was just according to the article back in 2021, Apple was asked why wasn't Face ID included on the new M1 Pros or the Pro Max versions, and the company said that Touch ID was the best solution. And essentially, why introduce something we don't have to when what you have is perfectly um, fine? So, I bring this all up to say is there seem to be some issues as it relates to engaging Face ID, because if your phone, you just pick it up and it interacts and it recognizes, the face to use Face ID. And on the MacBook, that's not so easy, especially if you lock it and you step away, or everybody doesn't close their lid and open their lid when they come back to their computer. So it was like, how can this work if the Face ID can automatically like sense? Well, I think with this new version of the implementation, they have a solution for that. But my question to you is, since they have this new patent and it seems to be more in alignment with the way we use Face ID on, iPads and iPhones, do you think that that may be coming down the pipeline, or is just something that Apple said, "Hey, let's go ahead and grab this patent just to be safe so no one else gets it?"
It's the latter. Let's just grab the patent so nobody else can grab it, and if somebody does grab it or does figure it out, then they've got to validate against this patent to make sure that they haven't copied or whatever the case may be. It's actually pretty quite the whole issue of why Face ID is not on MacBooks is pretty fundamental, as the story mentioned. The camera lenses and the sensors used to detect Face ID on an iPhone are thick, so much so that the physical body of the camera and the senses would be too thick to put in the lid of the MacBook. So it's like, well, which one? Y'all have to pick and choose what features do you want? Do you want a super slim MacBook or do you want a MacBook with Face ID? If most people said we want a MacBook with Face ID, Apple would be like, all right, fine. We'll give you a MacBook with Face ID. And then the very first thing people will say is, this is so
It's
thick.
too
The
thick.
MacBooks,
It
the MacBook
notches
Air
out. Yeah.
is so thin. And then they come out with this chunky, we're trying to get away. It's like, all right, pick one. Which one do
Mhm.
you want? Do you want a slim uh portable computer or do you want Face ID? I think most people would choose a slim computer, and Apple has made concessions for that, i.e., Touch ID, to where, sure, it's a little disingenuous to say, we don't need Face ID. You don't need Face ID because Touch ID and your keys, your fingers are already on the keyboard. Well, most people, if they're using their MacBook as a quote unquote desktop computer, they have a separate keyboard,
Mhm.
and that keyboard may or may not have Touch ID if you have an Apple branded one. I have an Apple branded one. My Apple branded one does not have Touch ID. I'm not about to go buy another keyboard that has Touch ID, right? And there are some people who don't use Apple branded products for their main computer, for their main keyboard. If I go upstairs in my office, I have a Logitech keyboard. It does not have Touch ID because Touch ID is Apple's thing, right? So to make one concession is the Touch ID on the keyboard. So if you're using a MacBook traditionally with the built-in keyboard, all you got to do is move over and touch it to authenticate, right? That's one concession. Second concession is you can use your Apple Watch to unlock and do some of the same functions like paying for things, you know, confirming system settings changes, all the things that you can do with Touch ID, you can set it up to where you can use your watch and you just double click your watch and then that lets you in, right? So those are two things like, all right, we can't physically do this yet. So in the meantime, in between time, we're going to give you two options. And people are like, So I think Apple is almost like, man, make up your minds. Which one do you want? Do you want
Right.
this or do you want that? So until we can get you this, we're gonna be able to do that, and you're just going to hold your horses. And for me, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. It doesn't really bother me that there's no Face ID. I do think, what I hope they have in their R&D pipeline. We've talked about it before, where it's a seamless screen. So on your MacBook, behind the glass, so to speak, so behind the screen, you can have some sort of input behind the screen where you don't necessarily have to have, the notch that everybody complains about, or the hardware
Oh, I
kind of
see
like
what you're
at the
saying.
top.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
behind the
The bezel
yeah,
at the top is
right,
all screen, and behind
right.
that is the sensors and
Is
the
the sensors,
webcam
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, I would hope that somebody over at Apple, their R&D team is trying to figure out how to make that work because
And I would
that would
prefer
be kinda
that on the
slick.
Macs and on the iPads and on the iPhones as opposed to the notch or the digital island or dynamic island, or
Mhm.
whatever else Apple is cooking up. I would much like you, yeah, I agree. I would much rather Apple focus on doing that
Yeah,
versus trying to come up with a way to add Face ID to MacBooks.
yeah. Yeah, and if you're going to and I think that's one of the things where people are like, "Well, laptops are pretty much the same, phones are pretty much the same." If you want to differentiate yourself from some of the other devices, give me that. Give me some innovation, on that front, not just a better camera, but a better implementation of the camera. So, I would hope that folks over at Apple, because they're really smart and Apple has a boatload of money, that they are hopefully trying to work on that over there and give that to us soon. So yeah. The other thing, we all lots of people love their Apple Watches. Um and there's this new, again, patent that Apple has proposed for a smart ring. And a lot of people seem to think because there are some devices that, monitor health things. I think was it it starts with the O, I think. That's like the smart
Aura.
ring that people yes, that
Uh-huh.
people use. And so there's a patent out for a smart ring, but and it's for quote ring input device with pressure sensitive input. So I don't believe, based on what this article is saying from Apple Insider, that the smart ring is for, health reasons. It appears as it is an input device. Think along the lines when the Apple Vision Pro was announced. Controlling the input, you just use like you pinch your actual fingers, and that's how you control what's going on within your headset. It seems to me that this smart ring would be maybe an alternative way of using, say, a Vision Pro. I'm sure there are other applications as well, but it doesn't appear to be like a health monitoring type system because they pretty much already have everything, built into the Apple Watch. But again, this appears to be an input device, a la a mouse, as a way to control. I mentioned the Vision Pro headset. It could be used to, as an input device to your MacBook or any of the other Apple devices. There's a schematic out. It talks about the contact pads and what it would in theory look like based on the schematic of what the ring would look like. And again, it's just a schematic, so it doesn't have any of the fancy Apple thing. Is very much a block here, a circle here, a smaller circle here, that type of thing. But it looks like this device is either on the way or just something Apple came up with again, a la the Face ID for the MacBook, to just get the patent for it so that no one else can steal it.
Again, I probably agree with the latter. I don't know. I'm not sure about this product because it would be a single use product if in fact it is used for an um device in companion with the Vision Pro. You're already spending what?
$3,000.
Yeah, $2,000-3,000 for the Vision Pro, if in fact it does cost that much when it launches. Now I got to spend another, 100 or $2 for this smart ring just to make sure that I can turn up the volume or pinch and zoom or raise the volume or whatever the case may be. I don't know if people are going to buy that. Again, there are some diehard Apple fans out there who will buy anything, but mostly Apple's products are multiple use when we're talking about, products that they want you to use every day, like a watch,
Mhm.
like a phone, like a tablet, a computer, right? Now we've got this new thing on the block, this Apple Vision Pro. And even with that, even with how expensive it is, we're still going to be using it for multiple things. You're going to use it for business. You're going to use it for entertainment. You may even use it for exercise or health or fitness or whatever the case may be. But this ring will only, in theory, would be used just for input, just for the Vision Pro. I won't be able to use it as now if it was multi-use and I could use it for my MacBook somehow, some way, I don't know, for
Well,
touch
they're
ID.
they're saying that it could be used for multiple devices.
Okay, well then
So
that would make it more um attractive to purchase, but if it's primarily right now going to be used for an input display for the Vision Pro, you may run into some pushback because of how expensive the Vision Pro is,
yeah.
speculatively.
Yeah. And I think, like, in the bottom part of the article, it has like a section for purpose and functions. And it does say, it gives an example. Quote, the ring can receive notification from a smartphone and generate a vibrating alert. So when I think of this particular device, um, I kind of think of it in 2 ways. We've talked about before, how they had a little ring, like, for TikTok. If you wanna scroll without having to touch your phone, you can
There's
scroll
such
through
a
your
thing?
TikTok. Mhm.
Oh, I
There's
didn't know that.
Yeah, and I saw it on, like, Amazon, where you can kinda, like, use this, little ring you put on your finger, and you can use it to scroll or look at or, go through your TikTok feed. And the second way I was thinking about it, so that's a niche use. I don't wanna call it a niche use because to the people who need it, it wouldn't be niche, it would be life, changing. When you talked about the story where the guy was able to get his was it Apple Watch to be covered by his insurance,
Right.
and originally they denied it, but when, I think Apple did a commercial featuring him or something like that.
Macworld, one of the
Yeah,
publications,
one of
yeah.
the publications, yeah. They were like, "Oh, we hadn't thought about this." So, my other thought was maybe this is something that is going to be very useful for people who have, disabilities to be able to maybe control their devices better. Again, that is a smaller population of people, but at the same time, um, I think, they would say, "Yes, give me a different input device if I can't, if I don't have full functioning of, my hands or these, but I can, control it, by this band that's on my finger." So I think, those may be instances where it would be super useful and super helpful. With I just don't know as far as the business aspect, the amount of R&D, the amount of development, and the amount of work that would go into bringing a product like this to market, if they would say it was a wise business decision to invest this type of money into a product where it's going to be a smaller population of people who get benefit from it. So, uh it's a pretty interesting concept. And again, how we've said before, um, Apple again, they have all the money in the world and all the, best talent in the world. Sometimes I think they just come up with stuff and say, "Hey, let's, get a patent for this so that no one else can have it." We don't wanna use it, but we don't want anybody else to have it either. So, I think these last couple of things that we talked about may fall into that category, but only time will tell as, it relates to what Apple is doing with this tech and what they plan to bring, to market. So that's going to, wrap up the lowdown where we talked all things Apple. We're gonna head on over into second string where we talk other tech. Um I saw this story and I was like, this is very interesting because I know there are times when I get a song in my head I don't know where it came from. Like, I think they call it an earworm, where it's like, I don't know what the song is. I can't get it out of my head. What is it? YouTube, the all powerful YouTube, just announced that they have a new experiment. At this point, it's only for Android devices, and it allows you to determine a song by humming it. So if you think of Shazam, where you open up, press the button when a song is playing, it circles, and then it finds a song. Well, in this instance, you would be able to determine a song by humming it, singing it, or recording a song. So, again, this is an experiment. It's used on a very small population of Android users. And users who have Android devices, who have the access, they can experiment with this in, various different ways, whether it's to hum or to sing for 3 or more seconds to be able to pick up, what the song is. I thought it was pretty neat, something kind of cool, that is in the works, so it seems. So I was reading through the article a little bit more. It's on TechCrunch. We'll include it in the show notes where there was an experiment that was similar to this that was done at Google a few years ago. I don't think anything ever came out of it, but it appears that for The older version that was under Google, you'd have to hum or whatever for 10 to 15 seconds. With this latest version, they just need a minimum of 3 seconds. So I thought this was pretty cool. And I was like, it'll be interesting to see if they're able to get this to work and bring it to market.
This is cute. That's the gist of it for me. This is cute. You know, I don't know. I'm not a huge music person,
Mhm.
so I don't use Apple's Shazam as much. And basically, for those who don't know, if a song is playing in the background, you can hold Shazam or Siri, which is integrated into Shazam, up, and its microphone will record or listen to the song and then find that song in Apple Music. I've used it maybe 5 times. So, I'm maybe biased,
I
as
use it
far as
all the
YouTube.
time.
Right. As far as YouTube rolling out this feature, I'm biased in the sense that, I hardly search music, tradition or I'm a traditional when I'm searching music. I'm not, using these newfangled ways to search for music. But for those who do, this is probably pretty dope, but like I said, it's a cute little feature, that maybe will, elevate YouTube, specifically YouTube Music, since they're trying to launch that as a competitor to like a Spotify, to like a Apple Music,
Mhm.
to like a Pandora. This is a little feature that, may set themselves apart. So, more power to you.
Yeah, and I say that because it was interesting to me because I use Shazam all the time. Sometimes I be outside with the youths and I'm like, I don't know what this is.
And I
And
don't
they're
wanna
just,
know,
oh,
which is why I don't use Shazam. It's like, Imma let y'all have y'all little fun. I don't know what this is, and I'm okay with that.
they be out there bopping. I mean, I'm like, well, okay then. What is this? Or if I'm watching a TV show, lately, a lot of the TV shows that I've been watching, they have really amazing soundtracks. I don't really use Spotify anymore, and a lot of times, some of the shows that I watch, they have like a running playlist for the show, for the music that they use in the show. Because again, music is very, instrumental in TV. It evokes emotion. It kind of sets a scene. It gives context to what's going on. So a lot of times when I'm watching something and a song pops, I'm like, oh my God, that's really pretty, or that's really fun. I like that. I'll Shazam it in a heartbeat. So yeah, so when I saw this, I was like, okay, I kind of like this. So this is definitely one of the features that are for me. And I think that's it for our second string, unless you have anything you wanted to bring up in second string, Terrence.
Nope.
All right, that's it for second string, where we talk all the tech. Next up is for the culture. And this segment, we talk about um, anything that's going on, whether it be in social media, whether it be in the news, whether it be in society, that allows us to engage or brings us attention, or something that is buzzing, or just something that we want to talk about. So this week. I wanted to bring up the story. It happened, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and I got into the Apple TV Plus show Swagger, which is really good. It was really a word of mouth thing. I kept seeing people talk about it on Twitter. I remember when it was first announced because it's executive produced. With some other people, Kevin Durant is loosely kind of based on his life growing up in the basketball scene. And I remember when it was first announced, I was like, I don't think this is my jam. And then I saw so many people talking about it on social media. And I was like, I'm at home. I really don't have anything to do. Let me just tune into this. And the show is phenomenal. I really, really enjoy it. They handle relevant topics very well, and it definitely gives you insight into the elite like AAU or team basketball, and how it affects black kids and their environment, what they're going through on the court as well off the court. And this particular story, is literally straight out of one of the first few episodes of Swagger. Again, it's based on this one kid who's a basketball phenom. It picks up when he's 14, and in one of the scenes, his mom tells him to go take out the trash. He goes to take out the trash, and the police, because they live in the projects, well, I'll say public housing, and these two cops roll up on him, handcuff him, accuse him of being a gang, or stolen cars and all this stuff. And he's like, I'm just taking out the trash. And his mom comes out and she's like, he's only 14, he's a kid, all those things, explaining, he's a good kid, blah, 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 blah. So this swagger started, I think, in 2001. And again, this is the very beginning of the series. And we're in 2023. So fast forward to August of 2023, kid taking out the trash. His dad told him, do his chores. He goes to take out the trash. Cops roll up on him, handcuff him, put him in the backseat of the car. They're questioning him without a parent present. His dad is like, "What's taking this boy so long to go just dump a trash bag in the big trash bin outside?" Dad rolls up. It's like 6 or 7 cop cars out there, surrounding his kid. They got the kid in handcuffs. Again, he's a child. He's 12. And he's like, just, the dad's trying to keep himself under control because he doesn't want to be arrested because he's trying to help his son. And ultimately, it turns out, that the kid, of course, did not steal a car. He quote unquote fit the description, and the police was just like, "Oh, it's just an unfortunate accident. These things happen sometime." He had on the same color shorts as the guy who we suspect stole the car that ran through the area.
Mhm.
All that to say, I know you have a son, you have, teenage girls. I have a nephew who's 11, um, he'll be 12 later this year. And, with our kids, I say our, I mean black kids, there's a point in time when they're cute and oh, everybody loves them. And then once they hit 10, 11, 12, they go from being cute to being threats. And I bring this up because literally what happened to this 12-year-old in Lansing, Michigan was literally ripped almost word for word from this television show that's now 2 years old. And I bring it up to say, of course, the child was traumatized. They patted him down, they put him in the back of the car, the dad's trying to explain what's going on. Nobody wants to listen. And as they're doing this, more police cars are showing up, and just the lack of accountability from the police just to say, oh, it was a mistake, our bad, oopsie. you know as you're raising 3 black kids, how do you go about the process of you know in informing them, and as you as a black man and as a parent, how do you, I guess, temper your emotions, or go about these things that unfortunately happen to our kids who are actual children.
Well, I mean, you gotta maintain your cool. I try to impart on my kids that, you know, even if you haven't done anything wrong, you do have to respect authority, even when you feel like you're in the right, even though you feel like you haven't done anything wrong, yada, 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 right? You still have to keep your cool. More importantly, in this area that we live in, we are not in a similar type of area to where this young man was traumatized by this event. But even more so, that puts even I don't want to say a bigger target on them, but more scrutiny, because if somebody says, "Oh, we saw this young black boy or we saw this young black girl doing whatever," my kids will even stick out even more because they are one of few that maybe in their class, that happen to be patronizing a business or whatever the case may be, to where police would have to run up and investigate or whatever the case may be. So you do have to maintain your cool. I understand 100% how a father would see their child and want to rush out and make a commotion,
Mhm.
because the anger, because the disbelief that their kid, who seemingly has done nothing wrong, has been, detained by the police. Especially when they didn't do anything wrong.
Mhm.
So you have every right to do it, but history has shown that police aren't the best de-escalators of issues, and whatever their training, whatever their thought process, whatever their biases and prejudices are, that's just not how they roll. So it's almost like you have to turn the other cheek in order to come out on the other side without being hurt, harmed, or worse. You just have to suck it up as a black man, in these current times, right? But my issue with this particular story, with this particular incident, is the way that police are have decided that they're going to handle this issue, right? So, like you mentioned, the boy went to take out the trash. It just so happened around the same time police were investigating some thefts of cars, according to the story. One police was chasing some other guy in one direction. Another police happened to see the young man taking out the trash, and he, quote unquote, like you mentioned, fit the description. He was wearing similar clothing, right? I can
Basketball shorts
understand.
and a t-shirt,
I can
which is
understand. I can understand the police saying, "Hey, young black boy with similar clothes on, with certain fit description," and would go ask the young man questions. What are you doing? Where you been? What's going on? Right? That is not, again, like I mentioned, due to police training, due to whatever is going on. That's not typically how police um, approach a situation like this, especially when it comes to young black kids.
black. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not the parent of young little white kids, so I don't know how police roll up when they are questioning, or when it's some young
White
white
kid
boys
who
in
fits the description.
right. I don't know. My guess is the police aren't as heavy-handed, quote unquote, when it comes to them as it comes with the little black boys or black kids in general. So again, I'm looking for the actual statement. Let me see. Oh, here it is. And this is quotes from the story in ABC News. While one officer pursued a suspect matching the description, police said that another, quote unquote, saw the young man pictured in the viral video wearing a very similar outfit and made, quote unquote, I wanted to highlight this, made contact with him, right?
Mhm.
But he was later released after police clarified that he was not the suspect they were seeking. I would be fine if that is what really happened
Mhm.
in the actual incident. What
Mhm.
really happened in the incident is they rode up on this young boy, threw him in handcuffs, put him in the back of the squad car, and
Mhm.
then started asking him the questions. And then, after pressure from the father, probably pressure from other people who happen to be standing out
Yeah, there was
around,
somebody videoing the whole thing.
somebody recording it. They was like, all right, we don't want this drama, so we're gonna let the boy go. That is what typically happens.
Mhm.
Again, I wouldn't have a problem if, I'll use myself for example. I understand that police are thinking fast, they got a lot of stuff going on, yada, whatever the case may be. I'm wearing the similar garb or whatever, and they come up and say, "Hey, what's your name? We got whatever's going on. What's your name?
Mhm.
Where you been? What's going on?" Question me. That's fine.
Mm.
I can either choose to say, "I ain't talking to y'all, y'all some whatever," or say, "I live up the street. I'm just taking my trash out. You ask me a couple questions, if and even if the police say, "Hey, we need you to, stay right here while we finish up what we're doing," right? Just
Mhm.
be cool, you know, stay right here while we figure it out. Now fine, as angry as I probably am on the inside. I'm probably
Mhm.
boiling and fuming on the inside, but on the outside, it's like, all right, let's just play it cool. I know I didn't do anything wrong. Let's just play it cool until we get out of here. Again, like I'm mentioning, police don't play it cool when it comes
Yeah.
to black folks,
They come
right?
in hot.
So, and then to make matters worse, like I said, they said, "Oh, like I said,
They downplayed it. They made it
yeah,
seem like it was less
we
than it
made
was.
contact with him." Making contact with him and throwing him in handcuffs and throwing him in the back of the
Patting him
squad
down.
car, that is
Yeah.
not one and the same, right?
Yeah.
So again, you've traumatized this kid for no reason, and then you just say, "Oh, our
My
bad."
bad.
Yeah, that is
And
not
my
enough.
Yeah, and my thing is he's 12. So if his parents hadn't had,
Wasn't
the
around.
talk with him,
Mhm.
no, even had the talk with him, some kids may just be scared and run. And
Right.
oh God, that's a whole other thing. So the question, becomes, I'm sure your parents had the conversation with you, like, pretty much every black parent has with their child,
Mhm.
going back generations, what to do in that instance when someone, comes and asks questions, or if you're in a store. Make sure your hands are always visible. Don't put your hands in your pockets. Don't touch anything. Don't pick up anything. So the question is, when do you start to have those conversations? Because it seems now that you need to have them earlier and earlier because our kids are adultified even when they're obviously children. This boy looks like a child.
Right.
He looks like a 12-year-old. Um
Unfortunately, that is the world we live in, and I don't see a tide turning or anything changing. So even if, for argument's sakes, my kids were doing something wrong,
mhm.
and they, police just had to question them or whatever the case may be, you know, um, you just still have to impart on your kids that, hey, this is the world we're living in. These are the situations. These are the circumstances. This is how you respond. You have to act accordingly, even if it goes against, the
Everything else I've taught you, I want you to come home safe
right, right.
and
Even
and
if you haven't done
healthy and
anything
alive.
wrong,
Yeah.
even if you think that's not me, that's my friends, I wasn't doing anything wrong, with my daughter specifically, I say, look, be careful of the company you keep. I'm not
Mhm,
saying you don't have to hang out with people, but you pay attention to what your friends are doing, pay attention to the type of person they are, pay attention to how they interact with their parents, with their friends, because they may put you in a situation to where you are guilty by association.
mm.
And I would much rather you remove yourself or don't hang out with this person under these circumstances. It's cool to hang out with them during school. It's cool to hang out with them during practice. It's cool, to y'all do sleepovers. But if y'all are, like my daughter is in the band and she's this year they're going to Disney or something like that. You know, okay, it's cool to hang out with them when y'all are practicing. It's cool to hang out, but when the teachers and the band members say, "All right, y'all got some free time, go run around, go do whatever," that's when you're like, "All right, what do I do to make sure I have fun?" Because I always tell my
Mhm,
kids, I say, "Look, it's okay to have fun, but at the same time, be smart and be
mhm.
safe." Those are my
Yeah.
3 things. Be smart, be safe, have fun. And I have to explain to them it's not just being smart as in like knowing how to count and knowing how to, get change and how to be
Quote unquote
polite.
street smart.
Right. It's street smarts. It
Yeah.
is be aware of your surroundings,
Yeah.
be aware of what your friends are doing, because full disclosure, my daughter has been, involved with some kids doing some stuff. And
Mhm.
luckily, it hasn't come to anybody got caught or anybody got questioned or anything actually came about it.
Mhm.
Because if it does, number one, kids are going to look out for themselves.
Absolutely.
And number two, you are a black girl. So
You can't do the things that some of your white friends do.
your word will be looked at differently, unfairly.
Scrutinized even more.
It's a little different,
Yeah.
and it's not fair. My daughter always says, "But I'm a good kid." I'm like, I know you're a good kid, but all it takes is that one situation to where
Yeah.
you are directly or indirectly involved in, and it comes down. You are going to be treated, scrutinized a little differently.
Yeah.
It's unfair, but that's just the world we live in.
That's the
Until
game.
things change, these
Yeah.
are the instructions that I'm giving you.
Yeah. It's, uh it's unfortunate, and again, my biggest issue was the response to the incident and the way that the police handled it. So,
And
uh
again, after the fact, the chief of police says, "I apologize." The Lansing mayor says, "I apologize." Lansing police chief apologize. Everybody apologized, which is this is new. Most, higher ups as it relates to police, they're like, "This is what happens. We stand by the actions of the police officer." That same thing. That's what normally happens. In this case, police chief, the mayor, or everybody's like, "Our bad, we apologize," which is that's something new, but at the same time, that doesn't erase. It's almost like it's almost like
that's the bare minimum. That's the lowest possible bar.
right, which again, I'm not saying I'm not giving them any credit. I'm just saying that is new, right? So
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of watching Law and Order, right? I'm
Mhm.
not a lawyer, I've never been in a courtroom like that, but when you will watch Law and Order, the lawyers, the are sneaky.
Mhm.
They will say something.
They will lie.
No, not lie. They will say something just to get it out there, just to get it in the jurors' minds that
Mhm.
I said this thing, and then the other lawyer will be like, "Objection," and then the
Mhm.
judge will be like, "We're gonna redact that," or whatever they say.
Strike that from the
Yeah, we're
record.
gonna strike that from you can't strike it from the record because I
You can
heard it.
strike it from the record, but you can't strike it from a mind
It
because
went
you've
in my
already
ears.
planted that seed.
Right, it went in my ears and I heard it. So whether or not I'm supposed to strike that or not, that is going to go into my judgment as to how we finally rule this thing. So to
Yeah.
correlate that back to this story, for the police chief, for the mayor, for all these people to say apologize, we didn't mean that you will we handled this wrong, we're going to do better, whatever. That does not erase the fact that this young boy was minding his own business, taking out the trash, and out of nowhere it went from that to him being traumatized by being arrested. He
Yeah.
wasn't they didn't make
He was
contact with
detained.
him. He
Yeah.
was arrested and
Yeah.
detained,
Yeah.
and that you can't erase that from somebody's mind, whether you say, "I'm
Especially a
sorry" or not.
12-year-olds whose
The
mind they're still growing and they take in everything.
Mhm.
And the dad was like, he's scared to go outside now. And I would be too. And I
Right.
could imagine they keep a very, very watchful eye on him because, as I mentioned before, when you're in that 10, 11, 12 range, they call it tween or whatever. You're not a kid, a little kid, and you're not a teenager. You still have, maybe the mentality of like someone younger, but physically you're doing your growth spurts and you're doing all those things. And you're like, but I don't know. I'm just a kid. I don't know what to do. And it's one of those things where reconciling, height and, disposition with age and just people just rolling up on them, just like, can you imagine in the video? It was like 6 or 7 police out there and police cars kept pulling up. And now this kid is forever this is forever etched on him. He will take this experience with him, the rest of his life. It will inform, the way he moves or the way he reacts to certain things. So it's just, really unfortunate. The parents have attorneys I think they're going to sue the city or something like that. And that's, the dad wants justice for a son. I get all of that. And whatever money you may get or whatever comes of that, it still doesn't change the fact that this is imprinted on this child now.
Yep.
And I wish it wasn't like this, but unfortunately it is. So that's going to wrap up for the culture. We're going to go into the hookup for our tech tip of the week.
All right. So I probably talked about them before, but I recently purchased a MacBook for my wife. And instead of going and buying a new one, I always go to my tried and true, which is backmarket.com. So we'll leave a link in the show notes. But I am advocating for this not because, I just think it's a cool website, but I've purchased multiple products from them. As far as myself, I get the latest and greatest, the brand new, straight out the box, fresh from Apple with the new Apple
Because you
smell and
care.
all that stuff because I care. My kids, my wife, they do not care. So it makes no sense to pay all that extra money to get the latest and greatest when they really don't. Technology ain't their thing, and they're going to treat it rough. My kids and my wife are always dropping their phones, and they know if I hear or see them dropping, I'm going to give them the side eye. So all the more reason not to buy them brand new stuff. So backmarket.com is where I go to get all of my refurbished products. And I bring that up because again, not only did my I recently purchased from my wife, but multiple people over the course of a week have come to me and said, "Hey, where do you go to buy? I'm looking for a new MacBook. I'm looking for a new whatever the case may be, and I don't want to spend all that money. Where should I go? Where would you suggest I go?" And I always send them here. So I figured I would just tell all of the Snob OS listeners again, if I haven't mentioned it already. Brother Tech approves of backmarket.com. And like I mentioned, we'll leave a link in the show notes where you can actually click and get right there.
Nice. All right. So if you're in the market, I know school is getting ready to start up. If it hasn't started already, holiday time is definitely coming up. So if you're in the market for some new to you devices, you have a place to go. That is going to wrap up the show for this week. We definitely want to thank you for tuning in. Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Sure, you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me at Tech Savvy Diva all over the interwebs as well. Again, to connect, comment, share, and even support our show, you can head on over to snobwestcast.com to get all the details. That's going to be it for us this week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Peace.